Monday, August 30th. That's Arm Layton. I'm Peter Apple. Normally, you see Jack's buttery, velvety voice welcoming you on a Monday. And apparently, I'm the guy that's too exciting on a Monday. I was going to say, you know what? Maybe I should take it easy. You know what? No, I'm fired up. It's Monday. I'm ready to roll. We have a huge mailbag episode today, and you're wearing a Bryn Sanity shirt.
Of course, I've got it for the people on YouTube right now. You can see it, but if you're not on YouTube, just imagine a Time magazine cover and then Lewis Brinson just hitting a bomb on it, because that's what he's been doing this year, a little bit more than he did in the past.
Can you take us through your relationship with Lewis Brinson? Because I personally, and you know this for me, he's been pretty bad his entire career. There's always a side of me that thinks that he could still be good. He's jacked. He has a baseball body of all baseball bodies. He can really hit lefties. He's super athletic. He's fast. He's strong, but he just doesn't really hit the ball sometimes. But then sometimes he goes on crazy tears. That's why the Bryn Sanity shirt is being worn.
Yeah, honestly, though, it's funny because he is uber talented, like you said. This guy was a top prospect for a reason. He's got every tool you can imagine, but he just has not had the plate discipline and just can't hit at the big league level. I don't really think he's like a piece for the Marlins.
Give me the timeline. Give me the timeline of when you got Brinson to now.
Oh my God. So when the Marlins first made the Yelich trade, I don't know if you remember, like everybody was saying, oh my God, the Brewers gave up so much just for Yelich. Yeah. Brewers fans were replying like, what the hell for Yelich? Like, what is this? And I remember I looked at the return. I was like, this is a big return, because it was 3 top 100 guys plus another decent pitching prospect in Jordan Yamamoto. So I was like, perfect. Brinson can start in the big leagues right away. Like, we'll see how it goes. And he got up there and just could not hit. He hit 199 in 109 games in that first season. And it's been bad since then. He's still a 199 career hitter in the big leagues now in 313 games. So it's been bad. The baseball body thing is great, but and I see it and I'm like, this guy needs to be sick. But at the end of the day, like, you can't steal first base. And Lewis Brinson is struggling with that. That being said, he went on a crazy run and people were going nuts, myself included, just because everybody had given up on him already. He's a great dude, so I'm all in on just getting amped up about it, but I think he's already cooling off again. So this shirt had a very short shelf life, but I'm still going to rock it until the end of time. And I don't know if Lewis Brinson's going to be a Marlin next year. So I'm just going to enjoy the last few months with my man and turn the page.
Enjoy it while you can. And we have a huge episode today. We have a bunch of questions that we asked on our Instagram, posted a picture, said ask all the questions and we'll answer it on this Instagram mailbag. Usually we call it a TikTok mailbag. Should we just call it the mailbag episode, the Instagram mailbag episode?
It's just the mailbag.
The mailbag Monday.
It's bringing in stuff from all different angles now. I love it. We might even get some YouTube mailbag questions down the line here, right? Like this is good stuff.
And if you're listening on Apple Pods or Spotify, we are also on YouTube. Just Baseball Media, search us up. You can watch all the podcasts there, all the Twitch stuff, and we'll be releasing a bunch of other baseball videos on there. So definitely go subscribe to the YouTube. So Aram, let's just break into it because we have a bunch of questions and they're wide ranging all over baseball. We got mascot questions. We have random fighting questions. And of course, we have some free agency stuff. We have some playoff predictions. We have some prospect stuff. We're covering everything in the mailbag episode. So let's start with, and I'd like to start with Javier Reyes, who is another contributor who has been on the podcast a bunch of times, but he decided he wanted to ask a question himself. And we're very glad he did because the question itself is kind of hilarious. Would you rather have the courage of Amir Garrett to fight 50 people at once, or the seemingly nonstop energy of Hunter Pence?
So I know we're going to have 2 totally different answers here because for me, I need the Hunter Pence energy really badly. I spend way too much money on coffee every day to have any semblance of that. So the amount of money I would save on coffee, especially now in New York, bro, like people pay $6 for a cup of coffee here.
It's ridiculous.
It's unbelievable. And you know what? I'm one of those people. I'm a chump. Chump. I pay $6 and I'll get 2 coffees. It's $12 a day on coffee.
It's ridiculous.
If I have that Hunter Pence ability, no money on coffee. That's it for me. It's a no-brainer.
I will also, you know what? That was a perfect answer. I'm taking Hunter Pence's as well because, Amir Garrett, it is kind of badass. He is badass that he went and fought an entire dugout in a brawl, but he didn't necessarily win. And if that included, like, I have Amir Garrett's energy plus the talent of a UFC fighter, maybe we're having a different discussion. But give me Hunter Pence's energy. Also, you want to save money on coffee? I think the Keurig is the way to go. I have a Keurig. I buy the pods, but I also just like kind of hate it. I like coffee from an actual cafe. Or is that bougie of me? I do like it.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Coffee is like, I look forward to it.
Me too.
I look
it's a
forward
treat.
To it.
Everyone knows about my iced coffee.
Something about it coming out of a plastic pod where I'm just thinking, this isn't that good. Even if it is good, it just came out of a plastic pod and I made it myself. I didn't do anything. It can't be that good.
Think about this.
That's how I feel.
Doesn't it feel like when you're putting a pod in the Keurig, it's almost like starting the day versus like, oh, I have like a nice coffee. Like now it's like my day's almost, it's different.
That's how I feel. And I feel like I'm getting something here that maybe worth a few bucks, but not $6. That's the difference. $6. That's criminal.
So I actually love the question. And I think we're both going with the nonstop energy of Hunter Pence. But off of those questions and into some more baseball-y questions from on Instagram, at Braden.Odom asks, if Carlos Correa doesn't re-sign with the Astros, who do you think are the front runners to sign him?
This is a great question because I frankly, like, full disclosure in the beginning, I have no idea. But we can speculate, right? This is some of the few areas in life, as we talked about with Jack in the last episode, where it's okay to speculate. It's really fun to speculate in these areas. And honestly, the Yankees make a ton of sense. I just, with the whole storyline and the narrative there, I would hate that. Not because I don't want the Yankees to get Correa. On paper, it makes sense, but I don't think they're going to do that for obvious reasons.
I think Corey Seager is a much better option.
Yeah,
just get another lefty. And, with the Houston
optics
thing, I doubt. Yeah, optics. Even I think if the Yankees, I mean, as a Yankee fan myself, I'd prefer if we don't get Carlos Correa, I'd prefer Corey Seager. Not just because, I just think Corey Seager's a better shortstop, but I'd prefer him long term.
Yeah.
But and you can make the argument. I think you can make the argument that Carlos Correa is better. I just personally like Corey Seager. And then the optics, like you were saying, with Yankee fans dealing with the Houston stuff, I don't think I'm speaking on behalf of all Yankee fans. Even though maybe I shouldn't, but I am. I don't want him. That's not the fit for us.
I totally agree. And there's already some big personalities in that clubhouse. I feel like Corey Seager is a much more low-key personality, not as much of the guy that's going to just throw in another wrench into the whole situation there. You mentioned the left-handed bat. I think that's really important. He's not doing great since he came back from the injury, but I mean, I'm not too worried about Corey Seager and his offensive ability moving forward.
World Series MVP. And he when the lights turn on, he gets even better. That's what I love about him.
And that's really big for New York, right? How do you handle that? But to look at some other teams for Correa, I of course would love to see the Marlins pony up and pay. There have been stories that tie the Marlins into interest with him, and with the new TV deal, maybe they'll do it. I doubt it. I don't see that happening either. I just had to throw that, like, I hope to goodness that it would happen, but I wouldn't be
shocked. I
wouldn't be like absolutely unbelievably shocked, because I think this ownership needs to make a gesture here that, like, hey, we're trying to win now. We have the pitching already. Let's do something. But I just would be more surprised from the aspect of them actually deciding to spend that money. So agreed. I don't know about them. I could really
what a team I'm looking at?
Who?
The Detroit Tigers, I think, have an outside shot at AJ Hinch, his old manager. The Tigers don't really have a shortstop, and they don't really have a shortstop prospect that's as close as like a Spencer Torkelson or a Riley Green, and they have a lot of pitchers.
That's a good one. I like that.
They got to pay somebody, right? And they're competitive this year. They may be closer than a lot of people think. I think the Tigers might have an outside shot at Carlos Correa.
I don't think that's a bad one, because a team like them too, like, they realized their rebuild is a little bit further ahead than they thought. And You mentioned Torkelson, you mentioned Riley Green. They're going to be there, I think, next year. Torkelson could be there right now, this second. He just hit a game-tying home run in the ninth yesterday. Just great. He's unreal. Even his takes are easy, and that's a whole we Green. We know how good Green is too. I think when we are looking at these guys now in the system, the talent that they've already been able to put together now at the big league level, the young guys, that would make them a complete team and kind of help them take that next step. And they'd still be fighting for a wild card spot, but that would expedite everything. And remember, Correa is young too. He's still well inside of 30 years old. So he's still got a lot of time to kind of wait this out. You could give him 7 years and be good with it. But I wonder how many teams are really going to be lining up to pay Correa in this market. And what other teams do you really feel like would go out and pay? I look at the Cardinals. That's one other team. I don't know how much they're willing to pay, but the Cardinals are clearing up money. They're going to have Matt Carpenter off the books, who's making 18 million. They're going to have Carlos Martinez off the books, who's making 12 plus, I believe, maybe even more than that. So they're going to clear up some money here. And maybe that's the target for them because Paul DeJong's been terrible.
You know, another team, I like the Cardinals. I mean, imagine that infield with Nolan Arenado, Carlos Correa, Tommy Edman, and Paul Goldschmidt. That's pretty.
And
pretty
one more
good.
year of Yachty behind the dish.
That's pretty good. And I also look at the Phillies as possibly an option. Dave Dombrowski, he'll buy anything.
Yes.
And considering Didi Gregorius is okay defensively, he's just not that great. Offensively, he's around league average.
And he's been struggling to stay healthy.
Upgrade there. I agree. I think Carlos Correa, you place him in there. I think that makes their team a lot better. And I think that it's a major upgrade at a position that maybe not a lot of fans think that they might need, but we think that Carlos Correa would be an incredible upgrade over Didi Gregorius.
Yeah, I think fans at that point are starting to realize that too. I'm just curious what the finances look like for the Phillies, who seem to be squeezing pennies to extend Real Muto. I wonder how much they'll be able to spend, but if they are willing to do that and they're able to do that, that would maybe put them over the top. We keep thinking that there's something that's going to put them over the top, but they just can't solve that bullpen. And it would be a cool spot for him too. I would be happy with St. Louis. I would love Detroit. I think that's the best scenario. And Philadelphia, I'd rather him not, but that would be pretty cool too.
And next question, talking about another slugger on Instagram at Row of the Boat asks, Paul Goldschmidt has had a super underrated and unlucky season. Where does he rank for you guys? I'm assuming, I guess, kind of where do you slot him in among the other first basemen in the league?
Yeah, it's a good question because I've always been a huge Paul Goldschmidt fan. His career in St. Louis wasn't off to as good of a start as I think most would have hoped, but he really turned it around over the last season and a half. And with what he brings to the table in terms of hitting for average, hitting for power, good ABs, he walks, he plays good defense at first. He's surprisingly very athletic. He almost has 200 career stolen bases, I believe, or at least well over 100. Too. Yeah, he's got speed. He's just a good dynamic player. He's in the tier 1 there for first baseman, no doubt about it. And I think at this point, you could make the case of him being pretty close to the top 5, top 6 first baseman in the league.
I agree. And he's 33 years old. I mean, I think we're probably starting to see not the decline of Paul Goldschmidt.
The tail end of that prime, I think.
I agree. He's still having a good season. I mean, he's hitting 287, 353 on base, 479 slugging. He's still got 21 bombs, 10 stolen bases. He's OPSing at 831. And if you look at his baseball savant page, it's all red.
Yeah, it's all red, which is good. That's good stuff. It's
exactly.
Red is good.
The average exit velocity, the hard hit, the expected weighted on base average, the expected batting average, slugging, they're either in the 94th or 95th percentile. And then you look at his hit chart, he's still spraying the ball all over the field. He's got a batting average on balls in play around 350, which is a little bit lower than I think. So I guess that's why they might be thinking that he's getting a little bit unlucky, but he's definitely hitting the ball hard. I wouldn't say that this is a crazy unlucky season though for him.
Yeah, I don't see the unlucky thing as much unless there's some day-to-day things that we're missing here. I don't think he's been that unlucky. The BABIP difference maybe is a little bit lower than normal, meaning that maybe the average could be a few ticks higher, but he's swinging the bat well. He's hitting for power. Like you said, I don't think there's anything too unlucky, but I do agree that it's not being discussed that much in terms of what he's doing. Not that it's this prolific season, but I was even a little bit surprised recently when I checked back in on the numbers. I was like, he's doing better than I thought he was. I knew he was doing well, but I thought he was doing not that. I didn't think he was doing that well because we're not seeing or hearing about him that much. I think it's because the Cardinals are kind of lying in the weeds, floating between and being in the race and out of the race. And it's just kind of one of those seasons. And he's just not really getting that much attention, but he's doing really well, I think, this year. And part of the reason why this Cardinals team's even been able to stick around now towards the end here.
And it's funny, maybe his stats might look better across the board if he was walking more, because he's walking at the lowest percentage of his entire career. Maybe if that on base is closer to the 380 we're used to, that OPS creeps up even more. The WRC plus creeps up. I mean, all these advanced stats, they love walks, and he's walking at the lowest rate of his career. So that's just something to note.
Being more aggressive this year, and that's why we're seeing the power come back a little bit more than we've seen in the past. But with that, we saw it with Joey Votto too. Power goes up. We know what's going to happen. You're going to walk a little bit less. And surprisingly, Goldschmidt's not striking out more than he normally does. It's just the walks are less. So you wonder if he's just swinging a bit more frequently in those hitters counts, whereas before he was more comfortable taking pitches and walking. But I think if you're going to sacrifice a little bit of a walk rate for the production you're getting from Goldschmidt right now, you'll take it and run. And the Cardinals got to be happy with what they're getting from the 33-year-old.
I agree. I mean, and we still, and I guess if we had to end it with where he ranks, we had him at 4 on our top 10 first baseman a couple months ago. I think that's still probably where he's at. I mean, we had Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at 5, and it was on the basis that he just needs to continue to prove it, because we were also obviously looking at track record as well. And he was having the best offensive season out of any first baseman. So we moved him all the way up to 5, considering he was so young. But now I think we can kind of, maybe Vladdy is a little bit better. So maybe that now Goldschmidt ranks closer to the 5-6-ish range, which, I mean, he's still an elite first baseman and still one of the better first basemen in baseball. So we have the next question, and this is a good one because this is a team that a bunch of people have been asking about. At JD_2622 asks, where do the Mariners finish? And it's interesting because the Mariners have actually exceeded a lot of expectations. They didn't show up on our top 10 surprises because we thought the Mariners would be good. It was our top 10 surprises list. And we thought that the Mariners would be okay. We probably didn't think that at this point they would be 4th in the wild card race. They're 5.5 back of the second wild card spot, right behind Oakland, ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays. Because Aram, if I told you, that's surprising. If I had told you at the beginning of the year that at this point on August 30th, the Seattle Mariners would be ahead of the Toronto Blue Jays in the wildcard rankings, what would you have said?
I would have been shocked. And if you added, and the Blue Jays would have gotten Jose Barrios at the deadline.
Good point.
I would laugh at you. I would have laughed at you. And that's more so because of the Blue Jays. I think the Mariners, we knew they were going to be good, but good meaning they'll win 80 plus games. Maybe.
Right.
That's what I was
They'll compete. They're not going to be.
I thought they'd be competitive, 500 right around it, maybe a game or two below. I thought they'd float around and fade. That's the big thing, is usually a young team like that, you get towards those meaningful games in September and they start to fade. We're about to get there. They haven't really fully faded yet. And that's where I'm surprised. If they finish really well down the stretch here, I would be surprised, frankly. I think they're going to slow down a little bit. Part of the problem is you're playing Jared Kelenic every day. And I think Kelenic's going to be a really, really good player.
He's hurting more than helping right now.
He had a good game the other day. And I know when I say something like this and then he has 2 hits, or like, see that he helped him win. I get that. But
we still think he's going to be good
on a macro scale, right? Like he's not helping them. He's hitting in like 150. He's really struggling to get on base consistently. He's almost just a walking ground out right now. And I think when you're dealing with that in your lineup every single day, you're holding yourself back a bit. And the Mariners are okay with that because they're looking at his development. And I think certain things like that are going to affect them. Abraham Toro has been swinging it great since the trade. He's still a young guy. Is he going to continue to do that down the stretch here? if Kelenic turns it around, I think they could finish strong, but I'm expecting them to fade a little bit and finish a few games over 500, or maybe even just 500 once it's all said and done, which I think is still a great outcome for them this season.
I agree. I think they're going to finish around 84 and 78. Right now, they're 69 and 61. So that means for the rest of the stretch, they'd play around 500 ball, maybe a couple games below. And the reason why I have them at that projection, they have 32 games left in their schedule. 16 of those games are against the Astros, the A's, and the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Now there's a couple Diamondback series, Angels series thrown in, the Royals. So they could win a couple games, but they also have some tough competition down the stretch. And the problem with the Mariners, it's not really the pitching and it's not really the bullpen. It's the offense.
Yeah.
I mean, you talked about Jared Kelenic. I mean, Toro's been fine, but if we're looking at it over a full season, they're 23rd in runs, and in OPS, they're ranked 27th. That's not a playoff team. Like, you can't have an offense. You would have to have the Brewers pitching or the Dodgers pitching or the White Sox pitching to be a wild card contender, but they just don't have that. They do have good pitching and they have really good young stars. And we even said not a couple episodes, it was like a month or two ago now, we have the Mariners having the best farm system in all of baseball. And we think that in 5 years, they could be a top 5 team. But I think they're just a little bit ahead of the curve right now. And not that they're playing in over their heads, but it's almost like that because I think they're farther along across their development than I think a lot of people in that organization might have thought they would be. That's why I think Kendall Graveman was traded.
Exactly. And Graveman, that move on the surface, people are like, what are they doing? They're in a hunt. And I get that, but exactly, that was almost reinforcing that the Mariners know exactly where they're at. They still went and got somebody in Castillo that's going to help them in the bullpen, but now he's controllable for several more seasons than Graveman was. But at the same time, at the same time, they were like, okay, let's cash in on Graveman here. Odds are we're not going to the World Series, and it'll make sense in a little bit. It's basically what DePoto said, and it all did make sense. But right now, again, this is a team that going into the year, they're exceeding their expectations a little bit. But for a lot of people and what people thought they were going to do, because of the fact that Kyle Seager all of a sudden is more of an impact bat, hitting 30 home runs for them. JP Crawford having the best offensive season of his career for a big stretch. Both those guys have tailed off a bit, but having them make these big leaps back to what they were supposed to be doing all along, that was something that the Mariners weren't really focused on because it's always just been the development. So having some of those veterans doing better than you thought, that's really helped them as well. Ty France absolutely rakes, and he's been doing that all year too.
Does rake.
So he's a hit machine. So I think with some of those veterans doing better, even Jake Fraley when he was on the field,
Haniger's keeps hitting home runs.
Exactly. Mitch Haniger's a stud. So those guys, not all of them are going to be a part of the future, and they help them this year to float around. This is really valuable experience for their young guys, for Jared Kelenic to get these at bats down the stretch here, for Ty France, for these pitchers to pitch in meaningful games. That's going to really help. But at the end of the day, you have veteran teams like the Astros, the A's, like you mentioned, and the Red Sox. The latter two really need to make a push here as we go down the stretch of the season. And they're going to be playing veterans that are really trying to win now, that have been there before. And that's where I could see the Mariners either play with nothing to lose or fade a little bit. And I'm just afraid it might be a little bit more in the latter.
So I got them at 84 and 78. What do you have them at?
I'm going to have them at I'm going to go 84 and 78. I'm going to go 81 and 81.
So you think over they're 8 games above 500 right now. So you have them probably playing close to 8 games below 500 for the remaining 32 games.
I think they're going to slide a little bit.
I think it's fair. I don't think it's that out of the question. I mean, I also wouldn't be shocked if they end up winning, 88 games this year, but still ended up missing out on the playoffs. I wouldn't be shocked.
It's a possible outcome. I see Yusei Kikuchi struggling all of a sudden. He's hit a bit of a wall. Logan Gilbert, I think he's going to be great, but he's hit a bit of a wall. Justin Dunn now out for the season. I just think some of those guys, it's going to catch up to them a little bit. And again, it's not an indictment on the Mariners. It's just more so this magical season where they have a negative 60 run differential and they're having this many games above 500 so far is going to catch up to them a little bit.
I agree. Next question is a perfect one for you by @Aiden.Penner. Many analysts have mixed rankings on the Cubs farm system. It is pretty true. How do you guys feel the farm system is? And what will the major league team look like in 5 years? I mean, Brendan Davis is your guy.
Yeah, Brendan Davis better be there.
I mean, come on.
Brendan Davis will be hopefully in the big leagues in the next year. And
I love whenever I mention that question, you instantly just perk up, smile.
And I'm
so
tired.
Big. Like,
I'm so tired right now too. And I'm just like, Brendan Davis. That's my Hunter Pence energy. But we know where I stand on Brendan Davis. So don't need to talk too much about him. But what I think they did at this deadline with their system, I thought they did a really good job to be able to replenish this system. Yes, it's unfortunate that they had to trade all of these players, but to get Pete Crow Armstrong for Javi Baez, I mean, that really boosts your system, right? That's somebody that was just drafted in the first round. Yes, he's on the shelf. He got hurt. I liked what we saw in a handful of games from him before that. He is a really exciting young outfielder. That helps your system a lot. You add in Jordan Wicks, who they just drafted. I loved that pick for them in the 2021 draft. Miguel Amaya is a good catching prospect. Braylon Marquez has been on the shelf. And this is the reason why I think people are mixed on the system is somebody like Marquez, lefty, throws 101, 102, but he's been hurt, has some questions as to whether he can stick in the rotation. That's a polarizing prospect. Alexander Canario, he comes over in this trade, has been a menace, absolutely incredible since the trade. Some aren't as sold that he's going to be able to continue doing that. I know Jack McMullen is after he saw him play a little bit, and he's a big Canario guy. So those polarizing guys, I think, are the reason why we see some mixed reviews. I like all the moves that they made overall to add Pete Crow Armstrong to that system, to see Ed Howard start to make strides at the plate. Kevin Alcantara, we know the upside that guy has. I know there's a wide range of outcomes, but that's someone
the Rizzo deal. He's good. Yeah, he was a good prospect for the Yankees. I was actually, when I saw his name included, I was like, that's why we got Rizzo, because Kevin Alcantara is a good prospect.
Exactly. And he's crazy. He's 6'4", 6'5", with crazy tools. Yes, there's a wide range of outcomes, but that is somebody with a ton of upside that you add to the system. So to have those guys added in there, they also got Caleb Killian in the Chris Bryant deal, who has been really good this year. Canario can make a push to top 100. Some of these other guys can make a push into the top 100. I think this is a top 10 system in baseball now, and that's probably a hotter take, but I think it is after those moves that they made and some of the progress that we've seen from some of their prospects.
I agree. I think it's probably at the tail end of the top 10, probably 10 or 9, but I think it's still a top 10 system. Like you said, it's really deep now.
It is great. Much deeper now.
And there's a lot of systems that are pretty top heavy, and I prefer a deeper system. I mean, we even saw it with the Yankees this year. The Yankees didn't have really that top heavy system, but it was really deep. And they had a lot of good players who took that next leap. Maybe the Cubs we see next year could do the same thing. And I think another, not exactly a prospect they got, but in the Craig Kimbrell trade, they got Cody Hewer from the White Sox, who's going to be a really valuable back-end bullpen piece for the Cubs for at least a decent amount of time. The prospect I'm always interested in, Little League World Series is still going on. Ed Howard, Jackie Robinson West Little League, became a legend in the Little League World Series, drafted to his hometown Cubs. What do you think about him? Because right now he's not the top ranked shortstop. They actually have Christian Hernandez, who's a 17-year-old, who I don't really know much about, but I guess MLB Pipeline ranks him very high. But Ed Howard is ranked 7th in their system. He doesn't really get on base, and he's not hitting for a very high average, and he's not really slugging at all. But do you see a bright future for him, or what do you think?
Yeah, no, I love the Ed Howard discussion because the story there is awesome too. And that's somebody that I would love to see be the shortstop for the Cubs for the next decade, right? It's too cool. I mean, he would be an icon there. I think that he could be that guy, but it would be because of this Chicago story that would make him the icon, because I don't think he'll ever be an impact perennial all-star. That being said, I do think he could be a really solid big league shortstop, and he's starting to show signs of life. I think what people don't realize, and it's because it feels like a while ago, the 2020 season when he was drafted, we didn't have the 2020 season, of course. So this is his first professional year. He was also one of the youngest high schoolers in that draft. He's still 19 years old. He's 19 years old. So first pro season, he's 19. Yes, I was hoping that he'd be better, but he's starting to show signs of life. He's been hitting well over the last couple of weeks, and I think he's finally making some tweaks. He made a big adjustment with his swing from senior year of high school to his first year of pro ball, where he used to be all arms, and really similar to Brendan Davis, made those adjustments he needed to make. I think he's starting to get there. And even if the bat is average, He's a really good defender. He's an above average runner. I think he's a smart player too. He'll be a good big league shortstop. I just don't know if he's going to be an all-star, but I do think he's going to figure it out enough at the plate. His swing is simple enough. I think it's more just getting the experience, and he will.
I agree. So overall, I think we both would agree the Cubs did at least pretty well. The only trade that I didn't think they got enough for was Chris Bryant, but I think overall they did a very good job at the deadline.
That one was surprising. But Canario all of a sudden looks like a potential top 100 guy now. So maybe there was a value of Canario that these two teams saw, and he was more of a piece than maybe we thought he was, because he has been spectacular since the deal. Though the one deal I didn't love has aged the best immediately.
Yeah, it's funny.
So but that is the good thing.
It's aged well for the Cubs, but also Chris Bryant is raking for the Giants. I think that's kind of why also, because I've been watching. I mean, you as the newest Giants fan, I've been watching a bunch of Giants games and just watching Chris Bryant continually come up, getting hits in the right spots. So for me, it's like whatever prospect they get, like they got screwed because Chris Bryant is raking for the Giants and he might win a World Series this year. So we have another question from @BigNate2144, and this is kind of a two-parter because it involves some predictions as well. So once the Yankees get Corey Kluber back, who is due to come back today, and potentially Luis Severino back, he's a little bit farther out than I think we think. Are they your team to come out of the AL, and who is your NL team to make the World Series? So I guess let's start kind of with the Yankees. Gio Urshela just returned back from injury. Glaber is doing his rehab, and he'll be back soon. Corey Kluber is slated to start today. Severino, he had a setback in rehab. Everything that Aaron Boone is saying makes me nervous because it doesn't seem like any of them want to make a decision. I don't know if he's really going to be a valuable piece come playoff time. I don't know if they're going to have the time to stretch him out. I really don't think he's going to be in that rotation. I think there's a possibility he comes out of the bullpen and stretches, but as a Yankee fan, I would just assume Luis Severino is just not going to be there. And if he is, it's only a plus, because you look at the rotation right now. Garrett Cole might win the Cy Young.
He's my guy.
Jameson Taillon has been excellent this year. Jordan Montgomery has been excellent this year. Luis Heel is really starting to prove something. And then you put Corey Kluber in that rotation.
It's good. It's good. Kluber's the X factor for me. Absolutely is for this team is one of my X factors, because you go through that rotation, it's solid, but I would much rather rely on a veteran Corey Kluber who's healthy than Luis Heel in the postseason. Not an indictment to Heel, but I've been amazed by what he's done. I mean, he is looking really good, like you said, but come on, we're going to Kluber here, right? In a position where you want to win a postseason ball game. So that is huge too. When Kluber's been on the field this year, we know he's got it in the tank. I mean, right? He threw a freaking no-hitter. He's got it in the tank.
No-hitter.
It's just he's got to stay healthy. And let's see how the Yankees manage him. In the postseason, you don't need to go 9 innings, right? Most of these guys go 5 and you give way to the bullpen. If Kluber can give 5 good innings to this Yankees team every 5th day, that is going to change a lot because of what the Yankees have been able to do offensively. I've been really amazed by the improvements that they've made in the bullpen overall too, because that's my big issue is the bullpen. I thought there was no way they were going to solve it, frankly, without making a big move. It's working right now. The overall bullpen ERA, if I'm not mistaken, is good. It's just
Clay Holmes,
how do you end
big addition.
How do you end the game, right? Yeah. Like that's the problem right now because Chapman's been bad. I know you're out on Britton, which I don't blame you. Loaizaga has been, I mean, you guys don't have Loaizaga. This is a totally different situation.
I agree. He's been phenomenal this year.
He's got to be the closer, right? So,
but the thing is, listen to this. I still am giving the 9th inning to Chapman. It's still his.
At what point are you done?
And if he blows another game in the playoffs? Like a big, I don't know. I don't even know if there will, when he starts not throwing 100 miles an hour. Like if we're dealing with a Chapman, and it's almost similar to Britton. This is why I'm out on Britton. Britton went from throwing a 97 mile an hour sinker. Now it's 91, 92. It's a completely different pitch, different pitcher. Chapman relies a lot on his fastball. He throws it over 100 miles an hour. When I see him coming into the game throwing 94, 95, I'm automatically, all right, we're going to lose this game. He's going to blow it. But when he comes in throwing 100, 101 with the slider and the splitter, he still looks unhittable and he still does the job. Sometimes he walks a lot of guys, but I still think when it all comes down to it, Chapman is going to show up. Clay Holmes has been fantastic. Lucas Litke has been fantastic. You mentioned Loizaga. Chad Green is still there and he's still good. The bullpen is good enough, and then maybe you put a Luis Severino back there when he comes back. That bullpen is good enough to bounce off that starting rotation. And then with that offense, so Aram, who you got winning the World Series? What's your World Series matchup?
So I am really getting more optimistic on the Yankees. I will fully admit that, especially because I love the offensive additions, of course, and we're seeing it come together. And Urshela is somebody that I'm super high on. So to have him back, that's one of my favorite low key guys, quote unquote. I know he's a Yankee, so he's not low key, but relative.
He is relatively low key on the Yankees.
Yeah. And to his performance, I mean, he's really valuable. For me, it's just who's going to close out those games. That's what really worries me. But where I go from the AL, I don't see how the White Sox don't win it. I still am leaning White Sox. I think the Yankees are going to give them a push, and I think the White Sox pitching is going to prevail. And what I also believe may stand out here is I could see Aaron Boone getting outmanaged by Tony La Russa in the postseason when we get into the bullpen management, into the chess matches. La Russa is really, and I didn't love the hiring for other reasons. But now that they've been able to sustain the regular season, the White Sox with La Russa, and get over some of the internal things that happened, he is good in the postseason and he is good at managing a bullpen. And I believe he could actually be a big factor here as we go down the stretch. Luis Robert's been raking since he came back. Eloy's been raking since he came back. They add Craig Kimbrell to that bullpen on top of Liam Hendricks. This is going to be the hardest team to beat, in my opinion. I think they're beatable, but I'm going to go White Sox out of the AL. And then as long as Freddie Peralta comes back, give me Brewers out of the NL. As Jeff Conine always says, and I'm with him on this one, 3 stud pitchers. Now that offense is looking pretty legit. Yelich showing signs of life. Give me the Brewers. I think it could be White Sox Brewers, and that would be a lot of.
So listen to this. At the beginning of the year, first of all, I love that prediction. White Sox Brewers, I think that's really solid. My thing is here. I picked Yankees Dodgers at the beginning of the year, and I'm just going to stick with it because I don't want to go back on a prediction. But if I had to change it, because do I really think that the Yankees are going to make the World Series? I think they're a really good team. I think they're going to be that first wild card. I think they're going to win it, but I still don't know if they're going to make the World Series.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if they did, though. Like, in which is a big change from where we were at, right?
A month ago, I was saying they should sell.
Yeah.
So, but I really do think, out of the AL, I think the Tampa Bay Rays have a real shot.
I agree.
And I think they're going to face the Dodgers, who have the best roster I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The Rays know how to get it done. They're going to pitch. The bullpen's going to be good. The defense is going to be good.
We got a rematch. We're running it back, maybe.
And if we're talking coaching, Kevin Cash, that all the men, they know what they're doing. I know they took out Blake Snell, and that's what ruined it. But that was in the World Series. Maybe they've learned from their mistakes. The Rays always get it done. Right? And then the Astros are the other team in the American League, which I'm very nervous about. Their offense, now that Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman are back, I mean, they're just loaded.
And they're pitching.
And they're pitching. Verlander, I don't know if Verlander's coming back. I'm also hearing a lot of mixed signals. I don't know. I heard September, then I heard possibly playoffs. Now I'm hearing they aren't sure. I don't know. I really don't know.
How cool would that be if he just came in? I know you don't like the Astros. Most people don't. But if Verlander came back and shoved, that would be pretty cool.
It would be exciting, not cool. I wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, good for Verlander. But it would be like good for baseball because this just makes the entire landscape much more exciting. Verlander was also one of the guys who just didn't apologize and like didn't care. And
he didn't do anything.
I don't like him. I don't need a reason.
but I love Verlander.
I don't not like Verlander.
Yeah.
Like it's not like I don't like Altuve. I don't like Correa, but I don't not like Verlander, but it's the association thing.
Yeah. Guilty by association for Verlander. You hear that, kids? Don't put yourself in a position with other kids that aren't good, because even if you don't do anything, people like Peter, which is the normal, understandable person, is going to hate you. And that's a very normal and understandable response. So I'll give that one to you, Peter.
And I wouldn't say I hate
all those kids.
I don't hate anyone in baseball. I don't hate anyone
in baseball.
I love the sport too much.
Yeah, that's true.
But I dislike Correa and Altuve. I dislike, you know what? I hate the Red Sox. No, you know what? No, I don't. I don't even hate the Red Sox because I like a lot of the pros. I don't hate anyone. I'm more going through this in my own head. I don't hate anyone.
This is a wild. We're in Peter's head right now.
Do you hate anyone in baseball?
Is that what it sounds like in your head all the time?
Oh, it's way worse. Do you hate anyone in baseball?
Do I hate anybody
or teams? You hate them?
Hate is such a strong word. Yeah, there's like when people love to hate players, I don't think they actually hate them, right? It's somebody that you love to just almost antagonize, shake. You almost have a love for them at that point, right?
Right.
There's definitely, for me, I think it's more on where I have my gripes is more on the media side. Like there'll be certain personalities where I'm like, I do not enjoy you. I do not enjoy you. And it's not because I do this also or whatever. There's just some people where I'm like, what are you doing? What are you saying? Why do you do those things? But in terms of players, there's nobody that really, really, really gets me, that I just want that guy to just fail in every aspect of his career. Like, I think that's the most bizarre thing ever. I want this other grown man to just fail in every aspect of his life because I don't like the way he plays the game that I wasn't good enough to play at his level. I can't get there. I can't get there. I do have the certain players where I'm like, boo, like, take
definitely.
him down.
Like when Chris Sale is pitching against the Yankees, I'm booing him. Doesn't mean I don't, respect the hell out of Chris Sale and his career and potential Hall of Famer. Good question. Do you think Chris Sale will make the Hall of Fame? I don't think so.
He's going to have a couple more good seasons. Yeah. But I mean, he looks like he's fine. He just threw an immaculate inning. So I think if he continues, absolutely. But he's one of those guys that definitely has to do it still.
I agree. He's got the talent. I just don't know, down the line when we take a final look at his career numbers and understand the impact he had, would he be a Hall of Famer? I don't think so.
Tough. That'd be one I'd have to really dive into.
Fringe guy. We were talking about other fringe guys. Zach Greinke.
I want to put Greinke. I'm putting Greinke in.
You're going to put Greinke in?
Yeah.
Who are more? This was the best conversation before we ask our last question, because our last question is really short. Fringe Hall of Famers. Like Paul Goldschmidt is a guy who we were talking about.
I was looking at him.
Goldschmidt will be a Hall of Famer.
Here's my problem with him, because I was really like, he should be, but he's 33 and just doesn't have the body of work. 1,500 hits, 270 homers, I believe, off the top of my head. Like really good numbers. But how many more seasons does he have? Right? Does he have 5 good seasons left? Could he play till he's 40? I mean, if he hits till he's 40, then maybe. So it's going to be interesting for Goldschmidt. He's going to have to age like fine wine if he gets in. I just don't know if he's going to amass the numbers at the first base position too. But if he had enough years, I 100% think he's the perfect candidate to be able to get in, but just not there yet. Posey for me is a fringe guy, doesn't have the body of work either, but the difference is Posey dominated on a different level. I think if you're not going to have the body of work, you have to dominate the game for several seasons, be one of the best. And that's what we saw Posey do for 5 years, where he's winning 3 World Series, winning an MVP, winning a World Series MVP. That's just a different level. And at catcher versus first base, that's why I think more so Posey as one of those shorter body of work guys. But we'll see. I love Goldie.
Last one, Nolan Arenado, Hall of Fame or not?
Oh,
tough, right?
Another guy that's got to show it at St. Louis.
Yeah.
But his defensive prowess is so good, and you can't cite cores to discredit the defense.
No, not at all.
And most players that have that kind of defensive prowess get into the Hall of Fame with really meager offensive stats. And we've seen it. So if that's the case, I'm going to side that he's in, because he's still competent offensively, and he's so incredibly, he's gotten a Gold Glove every single year he's been in the big league. So if we're talking about how prolific he is defensively, even with his numbers a little bit down, given that we expected that, he's still over 800 OPS. He's still valuable offensively. I'm putting Aronado in.
This is a fun conversation. We could
Yeah,
go
we
on
could do a
for
whole
hours.
episode on that. 100%.
We should do an episode on that in the off season. So last question before we wrap up. It's kind of a fun one. Asked by at RFUNYAK4 on Instagram. Who has the best mascot in baseball? I think it's hands down the Philly Fanatic. No doubt about it. I also like Mr. Met. I feel like Mr. Met is cool. I also like Green Willie, the Fenway.
You like them all.
I do like them.
I like them all except for one. I hate the Rockies. Speaking of hate, I hate the Rockies mascot. But other than the Rockies mascot, who will not be named, I am a big Philly Fanatic guy. You know why? Because he's got that big, or he or she. Is the Philly Fanatic a male or female?
I think it's is there a female Philly Fanatic?
I thought there was.
No, I think there's both.
I think there is.
Or is it just one?
I don't know. Well, that's another conversation, I guess.
We'll have a whole nother podcast episode.
The big stomach thing that they're able to just throw around and stuff. Like that's what they do to get the fans hyped up. Is just like shoot their stomach thing forward and just like move it around. That's sick. Most of the other ones don't have like a go-to thing. Billy the Marlin just walks around with a giant torpedo on his face that could like stab people. I don't get that one. I'm not a big Billy the Marlin guy, to be honest. What is the Yankees mascot?
They don't have one. They're one of the few. They're one of the few without. The Yankees don't have one.
Can we say
the Angels have like the rally monkey?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
And I think there's one more team that doesn't.
The Yankees are so lame. I'm sorry. Like the organization. So lame.
I mean,
you can't have facial hair.
That was a George Steinbrenner thing.
I know it's the old-fashioned Steinbrenner baseball. There shouldn't be a sideshow. Blah 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 blah.
They can't have mustaches though.
Yeah, mustaches are okay.
Mustaches are okay.
Yeah, who decides that? The Cashmans just said mustaches above the lip good, below the lip bad.
I think it was a George Steinbrenner thing in the 70s. I think that's really where it comes down from. I think George, he wanted a more corporate look with his team. And so he said in the 70s, you can't have facial hair.
Corporate. Because when people
like it.
Look at baseball, they think corporate.
And it's funny, when I was working for the Yankees too, that's the entire thing through and through. When I have my suit on, even as a 19-year-old intern, I got to be shaved, freshly shaven every single day. So it's not just the players. It's every single person within that organization.
It's lame as hell.
I kind of like it.
You like
but maybe
it?
It's because I've grown up with it my whole life and I've become so used to it. So now it's like our thing.
That's really cool. Maybe they'll do like a dress code. They probably already do. What's the dress code? So you got
to suits. Come on, baby. I was wearing a suit every single day with some of my maybe not fondest memories, even though working for the Yankees was one of the greatest things that I've ever done in my entire life. But one of the least fond memories is riding the subway 104 degrees in a full suit, sweating like you couldn't believe.
Yeah,
that's something but then again, that's not a Yankee problem. That's a New York City problem. It's just hot as hell here.
It's real hot. Maybe that's why they say no facial hair. It's just looking out for you guys.
They're actually helping.
Yeah.
Well, Arm, this is a good one. That's Arm Layton 8 on Twitter. I'm at Peter Apple 23. You can go give us a follow on TikTok and Instagram at Just Baseball Fans. Also on Twitter at Just BB Media. And if you're listening to us on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts, especially on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review and give us a little written note if you're feeling up for it. We greatly appreciate it. It's the best way to support our podcast. Anything else you want? Also, go sub to the YouTube. We're on YouTube. We're on at Just Baseball Media on YouTube, at Just Baseball Fans on Twitch. We're streaming Tuesday through Friday. I'm doing Wednesday and Friday. Kendall's been doing Tuesday and Thursday. Arm's going to get thrown in the mix. Javi is going to get thrown in the mix.
Maybe you humbled me and I don't like it anymore, but
Did I say maybe?
I said maybe because you knocked me around last time. I also have one really important thing. I think I just found my purpose outside of just baseball. I want to break glass ceilings. I've decided I want to make a change in this world. And I want to be the first person with facial hair to get hired by the Yankees. I want to break that glass ceiling. I want to be that basically pioneer. So that'll be the side mission for me. First, I got to grow a decent beard.
You just got to get you have to be such an electric media personality that they just say, screw it.
Screw it.
We're not going to do it for Judge, but we will for Aram Leighton.
Well, Jackie Robinson had to be the best to crack the big league.
So you're going to compare yourself to Jackie Robinson on this one.
No, what I'm saying is that's what I have to strive for, is that level of greatness. And you just Branch Rickey was like, we got to win, and that guy's going to help us win. And it's unfortunate that it took that, but that's what I'm going to have to do.
Well, thank you so much, everybody.